Welcome to NTD News. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Here are today's top stories. Ahead of the all-important caucus on Monday, Trump rallies his supporters in Iowa. The number of coronavirus cases has now overtaken SARS, and a study reveals when human-to-human contact first started to spread the outbreak. The UK leaves the EU today, entering a new phase, a defining era for the nation and the region in the decades to come. And multiple levels of law enforcement prepare to keep Super Bowl 54 safe. That includes protecting the event from the coronavirus. According to officially reported numbers, cases of the coronavirus have now supposedly surpassed the number of SARS cases from the 2003 outbreak. The U.S. State Department is planning to evacuate more Americans from the city of Wuhan on Monday.
The World Health Organization declared a global health emergency. The U.S. State Department posted a level 4 warning on its website. Do not travel to China. A new paper published in the New England Journal of Medicine on Wednesday found evidence of human-to-human transmission of coronavirus occurring since the middle of December 2019. Chinese authorities did not confirm human-to-human transmission until weeks later. Cases of the coronavirus have overtaken SARS. That's going by the officially reported figures. Experts say the official numbers reported by China are lower than the actual number infected. President Trump appointed a task force to coordinate the U.S. response and effort to contain the virus. He said they will ensure that the American people will have the most accurate and up-to-date health and travel information.
2 patients from the same family in England have tested positive for the coronavirus, the first such cases in Britain.
Coronavirus has reached the UK. 2 patients from the same family in England tested positive on Friday. They are the first such cases in Britain. To stem the spread of the virus, major airlines including British Airways, United Airlines and Virgin Atlantic have suspended flights to China. And many countries have chartered planes to evacuate their citizens from the infected city of Wuhan, ground zero of the global emergency. It includes a plane carrying 83 British and 27 foreign nationals, which landed at a British airbase. Those aboard face 14 days of quarantine. According to the BBC, there were originally meant to be 150 Britons on the flight from Wuhan. But some UK citizens didn't make it on board after being told family members with Chinese passports would be rejected. Even though that decision was reversed hours before the plane was due to depart, for some it was too late to get to the airport in time. Coronavirus has spread to at least 23 other countries outside China, including Australia, France and Hong Kong. But there have been no deaths outside of China.
And as the virus spreads in a city not far from where it all began, a group of doctors and nurses say they will strike if the government doesn't act to better protect Hong Kong from the crisis.
In an open letter, nurses and doctors from the Prince of Wales Hospital in Hong Kong imploring the government to ban all visitors coming from mainland China and supply adequate protective equipment to all frontline healthcare workers. The Union of Health Workers said on Friday, January 31st, that over 6,500 of its members, mostly nurses and doctors, will strike if the government doesn't meet their demands. We are striking in order to make an appeal for the hospital difficulties, to meet the demands of those facing difficulties on the front line, and we demand that they answer the preconditions for our requests. They say they're striking to protect Hong Kong. While Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam has ordered the suspension of the high-speed rail service and ferry services, you said it was not enough. The actual strike has been planned for February 5th.
And the SARS epidemic was determined to have cost the global economy tens of billions of dollars. Now, experts are looking into the potential impact the Wuhan virus could have on the global economy.
It's a rapidly developing outbreak. And in the coronavirus's path, businesses are shuttering and industries like tourism are taking a hit. These signs have experts and the Fed concerned about what this could mean for the global economy.
There is likely to be some disruption to activity in China and possibly globally based on the spread of the virus to date and the travel restrictions and business closures that have already been imposed.
The National Institute of Health determined that the last viral outbreak in China in 2003 resulted in a global economic loss of $40 billion. Starbucks, McDonald's, U.S. Airlines, and other companies have already cut back their services or have shut them down inside mainland China. NTD contributor and business professor Frank Xie said China's large-scale city lockdowns are also dragging down its economy.
It's unprecedented in world history, basically. And I'm expecting the Chinese economy is going to be dragged down at least, to 2% if the thing continues until February and March.
Professor Xie said it's too early to speculate what this could mean globally. The Fed chairman likewise said this outbreak is still developing and that they're carefully monitoring the situation.
And in U.S. politics, President Trump held a rally in the first caucus state of Iowa. He covered campaign promises and commented on the upcoming election during his speech.
President Trump campaigned on Thursday in Iowa. The presidential nominating race kicks off in the state next week.
I worked so hard for this state. I worked so hard.
He said he was defending Iowa's farmers. He spoke of the new trade agreement he signed with Mexico and Canada and a separate pact with China earlier this month. 2 deals that will boost U.S. agricultural sales internationally. President Trump won Iowa in 2016. He renewed a promise to make Mexico pay for a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. He also spoke about the upcoming general election. He said the choice was between American freedom and democratic socialism.
And an update on the impeachment trial. Senators will vote today on whether or not to call new witnesses to testify. If they decide against hearing from them, the trial could end as early as today. Democrats say additional witnesses could unearth new evidence against Trump, but Republicans are saying that it's House's rule to call witnesses, not the Senate's. House Democrats called 17 witnesses during their trial in December. Republicans control the Senate 53-47. This means 4 of them would need to side with the Democrats for the trial to continue, which isn't likely to happen. Lamar Alexander, who was undecided, saying the president's actions did not meet the United States Constitution's high bar for an impeachable offense. To remain president, Trump will still need to survive a final vote after the trial. This is almost certain to go in his favor. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo met today with Ukraine's president and foreign minister during his visit to Kiev. Pompeo said U.S. commitment to support Ukraine was strong.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo emphasized Washington's support for Ukraine on a visit to the country's capital, Kiev, on Friday.
Today, I'm here with a clear message. The United States sees that the Ukrainian struggle for freedom, democracy, and prosperity is a valiant one. Our commitment to support it will not waver.
Ukraine counts on Washington for diplomatic support, sanctions on Moscow, and military aid. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said relations between Ukraine and the U.S. were very good. He said he has answered this question repeatedly in relation to the impeachment trial of President Trump.
It seems to me, honestly, that on the contrary, there are very good relations between our countries, not just in words. The U.S. supports and defends Ukraine.
Pompeo confirmed the U.S. will maintain financial support for Ukraine's security. He said they talked about the economic opportunity for American businesses coming to Ukraine, noting that he had named a few of them to Zelensky that morning. He also said he'll find the appropriate opportunity for President Zelensky to visit the White House when there are things that they can deliver. He said that there was no condition to arranging the visit. Earlier on Friday, Pompeo paid tribute to Ukrainian soldiers killed in the eastern separatist conflict. Ukraine continues to battle Russian-backed fighters in a war over its sovereign territory, including the Republic of Crimea. The ongoing dispute has claimed more than 13,000 lives since 2014.
And life expectancy in the U.S. is up and drug overdose deaths are down, according to an advisor to President Trump. She spoke at the White House on Thursday, addressing the administration's efforts to stop the drug crisis. NTD's Kevin Hogan has more.
One of the president's advisors, Kellyanne Conway, spoke at the White House on Thursday about opioid statistics in the U.S.
The first time in 29 years, the number of drug overdose deaths has decreased.
She says this is not a coincidence, but happened through causation.
It's owing in large part to a whole-of-government approach to treat the whole person, led by President Trump, First Lady Melania Trump, and really the entire administration.
Around 70,000 Americans died from overdose last year, and about 34,000 of those deaths involved some form of fentanyl.
I wanted to share with you, as a reflection, what I consider to be the most robust and significant bipartisan accomplishment of the president's first term, H.R. 6, the Support Act.
Conway says the Support Act has brought more funding and awareness to the opioid crisis, and the STOP Act has helped prevent fentanyl from entering the country by mail.
The STOP Act has helped us increase the number of seizures of fentanyl and other synthetic opiates coming through our mail. It's up to about 38%.
She says the Customs and Border Protection has seized over 20% more fentanyl in the last fiscal year. And the Public Health Secretary says they are approaching the opioid and drug crisis as a public health issue.
It makes absolute sense for me to get the people who are pushing tons of methamphetamine to our youth across the country to get them behind bars as soon as possible.
Drug court programs provide treatment and supervision for people living with substance abuse instead of being jailed.
We support, with record funding from the White House, national drug court programs across the country and putting them in federal courts as well to make sure that people who have an addiction are not the ones that are going to jail.
Conway mentioned the administration has issued fentanyl advisories to the private sector to make sure they aren't unknowingly allowing the drug in the country by having a few blocks of fentanyl enter an otherwise legitimate supply chain. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
Coming up, French fishermen worry Brexit onset will restrict their access to British waters and affect France's busiest fishing port. More on that when we return.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format, where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled, and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
Our investigative reporters at the Epoch Times have spent 18 months uncovering the biggest political scandal in modern history. We connected the dots around Spygate, the actions by Obama-era officials against Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Join me on Declassified as we bring you up-to-date developments on this unfolding scandal.
Moving to the UK, after 3 prime ministers and 2 general elections, Brexit is happening tonight. The UK will then immediately enter a new stage of Brexit, widely known as the transition period. Our UK correspondent Jane Worrell reports from London.
Brexit done.
Okay, so Brexit is actually happening tonight. So what's next? Well, the UK will enter a transition period for 11 months. During this time, the UK won't be part of the EU's institutions, but it will still be bound by EU rules, which includes contributing to the EU budget. For now, though, people in the UK probably wouldn't notice anything different. In this twilight period, talks about trade between the UK and the EU can begin. The deadline to agree on the negotiations is December 31st, 2020.
It is an unprecedented challenge in terms of the scope of what's being done, which is not just a UK-EU agreement, but also parallel work on other trade agreements around the world, and in a very short timescale.
If time runs out, the UK could still exit the transition period without agreeing to a trade deal with the EU. The EU as a bloc is the UK's largest trading partner, and the US is the largest in terms of individual countries. When the clock strikes 11 tonight, it will signal the start of negotiations in the months and years ahead. Jane Rural, NTD News, London.
In a speech at 10 p.m., an hour before the UK leaves the EU, the Prime Minister is expected to say how it's not an end, but a beginning. And when that happens, Britain will be able to decide which countries are allowed to fish in its waters. What does that mean for the thousands of tons of British fish that currently passes through France's busiest port?
For the British government, a successful Brexit means reasserting economic sovereignty and securing a trade deal with Europe. French fishermen could sink that plan. 5,000 people are currently employed at France's busiest fishing port, handling 400,000 tonnes of fish annually. But less than 10% is actually netted at the port. With fish, lobster and shellfish caught from a host of other locations, including several British ports, meaning French fishermen earn the bulk of their income from fish caught in British waters. So, while Britain might hold the upper hand over access to fishing grounds, its fishermen can ill afford to turn their backs on Europe, said Aymeric Chazan, head of a fishmongers' union. His message for Britain:
you fish, you keep your fish for yourself and prevent others from fishing, but you've still got to make a living, add value and trade.
From Friday, Britain will say EU vessels like French trawlers no longer have automatic access to its waters. Fisherman Maxime Fay:
I hope there's going to be common ground and agreements made, because if that's not the case, it's the death of French fishermen, that's for sure.
Britain's fish stocks will soon operate independently, and officials feel a rebalancing is needed. One European diplomat said the objective was to maintain the status quo on access to British waters, while the European Union's official position is that there should be no free trade agreement without a fisheries accord.
Coming up, the Times Square Valentine's Heart competition sparks visitors' curiosity and reminds them of the meaning of love. More on that after the break.
Absolutely the #1 show on the planet.
I love it.
Breathtaking.
Incredible.
Awesome.
Very exciting.
Mesmerizing. Really enjoyed it.
It makes you feel alive.
Absolutely flawless.
I laughed, I cried, colorful and vibrant and joyous.
The dancers, you guys are amazing.
They can just fly. Gravity does not apply to them.
Oh my gosh, I was so intrigued by this.
I'd get lost in the music and I'd get lost in what I'm seeing on stage.
It's a very eye-opening experience.
We came for her birthday.
Great experience, well worth it.
Even though it's been going for about 10 years, every year it's a completely different show.
I know this sold out very, very quickly, and I can see why now.
I think I've not seen something like this ever before.
I would recommend it to everybody.
I recommend it to everyone.
Is it possible to find solitude in New York, especially in the heart of the city in Times Square? NTD's Melina Weiskup takes us there to find out.
How can you find stillness and undivided attention in the dense, hyper-stimulated area of New York City? That's one of the questions the designers had in mind when they created this year's Times Square Valentine Heart.
We wanted to find a way to bring that combination of the incredible kinetic overstimulation, but also some slowness and attention together.
The variety of reflected images from the mirrors is meant to capture the city, while its outline gives the viewer a break from the chaotic atmosphere.
In the world with over 300,000 people coming every day, we wanted to find a bit of the sky, so a connection to the environment that is around us.
This is the 12th annual Times Square Valentine Heart Competition. Every year they have a different design, and this year the designers put a lot of purpose and intent behind really creating this piece so that the viewers have to kind of engage with the piece of work and really observe what it is.
It was just questionable. We didn't know what it was. We were just wondering.
We were standing behind it and we were like, what is that? But then we come around and look at the front and it looks unique. So
after some time, they see that the reflections of themselves and those around them is actually what makes up the image of the heart.
One of the things that is most important to celebrate about love is that it's the most universal value of all.
And that is exactly what people from all around the world will come to this spot to celebrate this Valentine's Day. Melina Weisskopf, NTD News, New York.
New technologies will probably change the way we drive. In Paris, the Concept Car Festival invited famous brand designers to display their new models and show what they have in mind for the next generation of cars. Our correspondent David Vives has the details.
Future designers sketching future cars. Ferrari, Mercedes, Bentley, Bugatti made their way to the stage under the Invalides Dome in Paris for the Paris Concept Car Show. Fresh out of the designer's workshop, this is what the big brand designers have imagined for you.
Design makes a difference in a driver's mind. Getting yourself a car is about having a crush, being passionate, feeling emotion. If you create a car that's perfectly equipped with technology, but that lacks in design, it will likely be a commercial failure.
Old brands, new models. It seems every car design has its own DNA, which their makers try to sustain and refresh over time. This Bentley is one of the festival stars.
To keep this very characteristic graphic, this big massive grille and these big round lights. There are about 6,000 LEDs on the grille, so there's a very nice, when you open up you start up the car, a very beautiful pattern which can be customized.
All car manufacturers refresh their models every 5 to 8 years. Apple's new concept car, particularly its front-end design, shows us the face of the next generation of Apples. And this is what a driver-oriented screen looks like. It's very clean, very pure. Door panel, air vents, and all dashboard functions are integrated in this digital screen.
New technologies are also a part of the future cars.
Cars will become more and more autonomous. The interior of the car is becoming very important for car builders these days. People also expect to spend less time driving, and perhaps more time relaxing, chatting with passengers, watching films, and working.
And here's an example of a Lego cube-shaped car adapted for urban mobility. Easy to park, room for luggage.
In the drive pod, you actually will put your cell phone on it, just dock it, and this mirror will actually reflect your screen. So you actually don't need the navigation system of the car. You actually use your own app on your cell phone.
For the next concept car show, Depois said he has a dream.
I would like to go to Central Park in New York and have an exhibition there. That would be extraordinary.
Reporting by David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Up next, Super Bowl Sunday is fast approaching. Big brands are spending millions on ads to get their message out to the world's largest TV audience. More on that after the break.
Factual,
honest news.
Not biased, but completely straightforward.
You're not emotionally going up and down.
Bringing morality back to newspapers.
Be honest, old-fashioned journalism.
You're presenting the facts and letting the reader decide.
The Epoch Times is a fearlessly independent news media that publishes in 35 countries and 21 languages. Truth and tradition is our motto. Founded as an antidote to communist propaganda, today we're quickly becoming a household name across America. Our subscribers thank us for our relentless and unbiased coverage.
I've been part of the Epoch Times for nearly a decade because I've seen there's no other major media outlet in the world as devoted to real journalism. The Epoch Times has never had any corporate or political agenda. We only serve our readers, and we'll stay that way, no matter what.
We connected the dots around Spygate the Obama administration's elaborate efforts against Trump's 2016 campaign. We often break news months ahead of other media on topics such as Chinese espionage, cyber warfare, subversion in America, and more. But our authoritative reporting didn't only just begin. We are tried and true.
Our paper was born out of the need to respond to a human rights catastrophe in China. It was enabled by the Communist Party's vicious and dishonest propaganda. We soon learned that Western media were picking up and amplifying the lies. The Epoch Times' truthful reporting exposed the Communist Party's lies for the Chinese people. But it also helped protect our Western audience. It disabused for them the lies in this propaganda. Our reporting has also helped uncover how communist ideas are taking root in our own country. The Epoch Times started as a small and unknown publication in one of the toughest media markets in the world. We have built it through hard work and trial and error.
We were founded in the year 2000 in Atlanta, Georgia, by Chinese Americans who had fled communist China. Our independent reporting came at a price. Our staff members in China were jailed and tortured for their reporting, some for as long as 10 years. Because our founders believed in truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance, the principles of the spiritual practice fallen gone. They felt such sacrifices were worth it to ensure for the world an independent, honest media, one that would report on the most pressing issues of our time. As many major media are losing people's trust and declining further every day, the fastest growing newspaper in America delivers truth and tradition. Look us up today.
The U.S. Homeland Security Chief spoke about the massive security effort that is going into Sunday's Super Bowl 54, including precautions around the coronavirus.
Law enforcement is preparing for Super Bowl 54 in South Florida with the highest level of security. Thousands of police from local, state, and federal agencies will coordinate their efforts to protect Sunday's game between the Kansas City Chiefs and San Francisco 49ers.
Not only does an event of this nature lend itself as a possible target for violent actors and potential terrorists, but it's also an attractive destination for human trafficking activity, as well as the sale of counterfeit goods.
Wolf said federal agencies will do both things seen and unseen to protect the event. Homeland Security is also taking measures against the coronavirus and screening travelers arriving from China.
A number of flights that are coming in from mainland China are certainly being flagged. So we, along with CDC, we're doing enhanced screening at 5 primary airports. That has now expanded to 20 airports, including Miami here.
Homeland Security has given the event its highest threat rating, despite citing no specific major threats. Multiple local police departments will lead a massive ground operation with thousands of officers. Miami police said officers will patrol on foot, on horseback, in boats, and in the air.
This Sunday, as San Francisco 49ers and Kansas City Chiefs face off on the field, big brands will battle it out for the best ad slots, spending millions in the process. For this year's Super Bowl Sunday, marketing experts say brands are spending a record high of up to $5.6 million for 30 seconds of commercial airtime.
Tons of companies are choosing to really invest in the Super Bowl this year with a bigger ad spend, because if a 30-second ad costs just over $5 million, that means that a 60-second ad costs close to $11 million.
Kia's 60-second ad puts a spotlight on youth homelessness.
The way we look at Super Bowl ads is you do them for 3 reasons. 1, you either do them to get awareness of your brand. 2, you get them to launch a product. Or 3, you want to tell something about your brand.
It stars Oakland Raiders' Josh Jacobs, who has a conversation with his younger self.
If you're already going to invest $5 million in a Super Bowl ad, there's an argument to be said, why not just double that, and then you get double the amount of time in front of, the world's biggest television audience.
Other brands will use humor as a time-honored tactic for Super Bowl commercials. Cheeto's Super Bowl spot shows all the things people can't touch after eating the snack. Each year, around 100 million people watch the Super Bowl. And that's all for now. Thanks for tuning in. Join us again tonight. I'm Tiffany Meyer.